So I want to go more into the concept of absence right here. And what I mean by absence is that the state and the quality that we live in feels absent of those feelings of natural joy, meaning, passion, clarity, peace, direction. So I talked before about the different qualities of presence or the spiritual virtues that we might have, and what happens when they're not there. Well, when they're not there, we experience an absence, like a cold, a void, and as a client told me, it's like the last candle in an eerie cold room being blown out, and I'm left really with nothing. And so a few different men have written to me saying, I'm feeling more and more of this emptiness, this disconnection, this not feeling vital or vibrant, or not knowing really what to do with my life. They don't perhaps use the word absence, but it is that there's none of these qualities or feelings which I long for, and I know that I am and that life should be. They're not here anymore. What do I do? And so I want to talk about that here. We're living in a state where many of us are feeling more and more this pervading emptiness and meaninglessness in our lives. And so the first thing I want to say is that this is actually normal. This is actually normal for a healthy adult to come into feelings like this. And so, yeah, this might happen if you're in your early or mid-20s already. Typically it happens for men when they kind of cross 35. I've certainly had a bout of this lately on turning 40. You might be in your early 50s. But there's this kind of existential abyss, this midlife kind of crisis. Where is the meaning? Like, I believe and feel my life should have some meaning, and I don't have any. And what we used to do when we were younger was, well, first of all, we didn't have the duty and the responsibility that we've now got. So there were effervescent moments of connection and joy just handed to us. Like if you were integrated at school and had some good experiences of traveling and college and, you know, fun jobs at the start of your career before it got important, then meaningfulness and joy and connection and mischief and all those great things abounded, discovering women and all that kind of stuff. So life kind of naturally gives you a lot of nice treats when you're young, and also your kind of ego, your personality, the ways that you overcompensate also is giving you the sugar rush. So say you've got a low amount of joy in your life, okay, great, go out, have a good party, end up in bed with a woman. Yeah, I really feel joy. Like I buy into the compensation of all of that. But when you really start hitting a proper kind of midlife malaise or an existential crisis, it's like, yeah, really, I see through now the manufactured nature of things. Abundance of success, abundance of women, abundance of money, abundance of travel. These things don't scratch the itch, and I can even go back into the lifestyles that I had before and try and get these feelings that I want from these people and this consumption and this hedonism, but it doesn't touch the spot. So I don't even want to engage with certain old friends, or I don't want to drink anymore, or I don't want to travel to these places, even that I've seen through, I'm empty. So it's like you don't feel the qualities of presence, the sublimity of life, inherent meaning in life, and neither are your compensation mechanisms and behaviors actually giving you the sugar rush. It's like, what do I do now? I'm in complete absence and complete void. Here we are, and that's what we're going to address. And as I said, it's normal for a healthy life to come into this kind of breakdown, and there is a beautiful and healthy way through. But I first want to say that there is another reason why I think so many people are coming to me at the moment with this experience. And that, I think, is because of the state of the world. So I do believe that there is a low-level residual trauma from the whole COVID debacle and the lockdowns that people haven't registered or looked at or even know how to process. It shaped us as a global society. And when we are semi-aware that it shaped us for the worse, and yet we usually don't have the time and the resources to really understand how, in what way, and how to heal through that. So the world is going through a turning. There is also a brutal war going on in an era where we thought actually we had overcome those kinds of atrocities, and that's happening, and we're aware that these things are happening again on the planet. We're aware that we are in, as it's been called, a time between worlds, where the old paradigm of meaning and living as a nation or as a community has broken down. We see through the falseness of that, and even a lot of our institutions and infrastructure globally is breaking down, and it's going to go into something new. But that hasn't arrived yet. We don't quite know what the next paradigm or the next life is going to be. So we're in this weird time between worlds, and as a society, we don't have a connected, meaningful story. There's nothing to strive for. No one's got a good message about what is God or what is meaning or what are values and virtues. And so it's kind of every man for himself. Man's search for meaning syndrome, like life is inherently meaningless, but we attach to it the meaning that we find. But no one really is helping us find any sort of meaning. And so this has arisen philosophically. It's in the turning of the world and the fight between these great powers. We've got these things like COVID. We look at our society and there is vitriol and culture war everywhere, and even the kind of religious messages that God can come and save you and there is a way through this. They've been ridiculed and laughed at for a long, long time. So if you feel like you're in an existential absence or a nihilism and you're struggling to make it through, I can only imagine that that's accentuated because the global culture that we're living in right now is itself in a void and has no story and has no path and has no ability to find meaning. Atheism and science has deconstructed everything. Postmodernism deconstructed everything. We as a culture and philosophically have got nothing. So the onus is on us as individuals to find our meaning, and the onus is on us as people in a culture and together as a tribe to weave together art, stories, models of understanding that can help people through this void. So you're not helped out. Not only is it healthy and natural for you to be in a void, but you're not helped out by global conditions. So two pieces. How do you work with it? Well, in the last video, I talked about when the ego personality breaks down and you sit in your own personal void, you sit in it long enough and you end up with presence. It's that yin-yang duality of presence and absence. It's there, it's not there. God's awake, the sun is out. God's asleep, the sun is dead. Like, if you can let go of the compensation, which you're probably doing if you're asking yourself these deep existential questions, you sit in that long enough and the void quality kind of just burns up and transmutes into presence. So just like at the end of a long evening, the night, I guess, in some way gets tired, the sun comes up from somewhere else and begins a new day. So the mechanics of it, through meditation, through coaching or a good embodied existential kind of psychotherapy, you sit there and you feel the absence, the void, your nihilism, your meaninglessness. And rather than enter into recursive thought, why is life so meaningless? I'm going to go to all these existential philosophers and then try and think my way out of it. Actually sit directly in the experience itself, like meditating. What does it like to palpate, to sense the emotional and sensate reality of meaningless, void, cold, dark, nothing? What is that like? So you sit there in this phenomenological way, sensing what is it like to be in absence. And the human consciousness just cannot seem to, if you're very present and very engaged in this palpating, this sensing, this being intimate with the void and the absence, human consciousness cannot stay absent for that long without flipping into its dual opposite, which is presence again. Wow. And I've seen this hundreds of times with coaching clients and felt in myself, wow, in the midst of this absence, when we really looked into the black like a warrior, with almost this joyous, fuck yeah, like let's look into the abyss of doom and face it and open it and not flinch and not try and rationalize it or describe it. Let's just feel into and look into this face of the abyss. Well, the face of the abyss kind of dissolves or flickers and opens up, and through a crack some light comes in, and wow, these qualities of meaning come back. So people ask, is life inherently meaningful? And you've got philosophers and theologians on one side that will talk about the inherent meaning of life and give a whole rationale for it. And then you'll have the nihilists on the other hand that are just demolishing all sense of meaning and really plunge us into a void and an absence. But this is all at a theoretical level. What I come to discover about meaning is that it's a state of consciousness. And so when I have a deep feeling of the presence of meaning, when the sublime quality of meaning is here, everything I look at is meaningful. And you probably had these peak experiences where you walk down the street and the children are singing and the birds are out and it's the first day of spring. Life is inherently meaningful, even if everyone else is just stuck in their daily minutiae. The eyes that we look through are ones of meaning, because the thing behind our eyes, consciousness, is in a state of where meaning is present. And then, interestingly, when the meaning runs out, when the consciousness behind the eyes has lost touch with the presence of meaning, we look out through the same eyes and we look at the same world, same children, same birds. Everything is shit and void and useless. So this is the mechanism, and I'm taking pains to describe that. Yes, if you're really entering into a midlife malaise and crisis, you know that the sports car, the fast girls, the probably most of the traveling that you think of doing, or most of the friends that you think of calling up in search of a good time, they're not actually going to hit your malaise. And so the mechanism is to sit as deep as possible in the absence of meaning and joy and excitement and passion until that naturally transfigures and moves into the state that you're looking for. And interestingly, in that state, everything is meaningful. Everything is beautiful. And it's back. Wow, it doesn't matter really what I do with my life or who I hang out with or what I do. I can take it or leave it. But in the state of meaning, remember, nothing is missing, nothing is incomplete. Life is whole and perfect as it is. So if only we could sit in our own existential abyss long enough and feel it from the inside so it would transform. How does that actually look in practice? Well, what I'm talking about is a meditation, right? You meditate enough on the absence so that it transforms into presence. But often we do need guidance to let go of some of the stories, let go of some of the ego patterns so that we can sit and befriend the darkness long enough so that we can find the things that we're looking for. And you could do that through a spiritual form of psychotherapy alone, or particular forms of presence-based coaching or non-dual coaching, which non-duality is the collapse of the presence and the absence. You can approach that. There's also the aspect of the soul. And one way of talking about the soul is that if spirituality is this kind of transpersonal layer, all these different qualities that come into us, then I believe soul is kind of like this hairy mammal that lives in and beneath our skin. It's like before the thinking mind and our rationale and everything is formed, there is a creature in here that has biologically evolved through DNA, that belongs to the earth, that is an organism that is part of this biosphere, and it has cravings and longings and unique abilities. And this is why we resonate with particular forms of music and poetry and art and cinema and so on. It's the very deep, pre-rational, yearning, craving, loving inner mammal, I would say, that all of us have. And so that is something that can be accessed and woken up as well, which is like, how do I let go of my constant thought stream and feel into myself as a creature? How do I do that? How do I access spiritual qualities, spiritual absences, and also access myself as a deep human, finite creature. How do I do that? And so a lot of people go on a journey of soul exploration or soul initiation. And so the beautiful and healthy thing, I believe, about when an egoic form of self breaks down and comes into a personal existential crisis is that that is often the signal that you go on a soul's journey and you seek answers. You seek topics and themes and teachings and maps and models, all the things I'm talking about in this video. And you seek them, you take them in, you listen to them, you seek for certain peak experiences. And what you're really looking for when someone goes soul searching is an opportunity to sit long enough in the existential hole or fall deeply enough into these sublime states of presence so that they feel them in a completely full-bodied way. When someone says, I'm going to go and find myself, it's who are you going to find exactly? You're not going to find a better thought out sense of strategic self, even though most people come back from their traveling gap year and they just have an updated strategy for their life. But what you're really looking for is you're looking for yourself as the full embodiment of the range of sublime virtues. So you need to do things in order to feel yourself like that. And it could be any spiritual path or training, any shamanic training, any kind of body-based psychotherapy. People are going into breath work and ayahuasca and all kinds of different places to have these deep experiences of themselves as presence. But some of the core ones, I believe, are some of the most simple, which to meditate, to be able to get out of your thinking mind and come into your body, to be able to meditate, to be able to access the pure feelings of absence, and then solitude. Nature, solitude, the vision quest, silent meditation, cave meditation, anything that can keep you deeply in those states of absence so that you can start to transmute that and see some of the presence on the other side. And during this whole process, there can be revelations of what your real gifts are, or what energizes you, what kind of work energizes you, what's your vision for the future of the planet, or at least what do you want to hand down to the next generations? How do you want to spend your days? Like, given your deep makeup, not your mind makeup, but the whole living aspect of soul and body and heart and guts that you are, how does this animal part of you feel most complete and like it's in the right spot in the earth if it passes its days? These are all questions to find on this journey. So even though to work through an absence, let's say we're working one-on-one on the subject of confidence, if we can just sit in that place, which is an absence of confidence, that quality of absence is going to transmute sooner or later into confidence. You're going to feel yourself as confident. Not that confidence is not a shot to the ego, it's just, oh yeah, I can do it, everyone else can, it's not a problem. There's just no more parts in the way. So to work with confidence, I will sit with you in the absence of confidence for an hour or so until that burns out and turns into confidence. But when it comes to, I don't really know what my soul is, I don't know what spirit is, I don't find sublime meaning in my life, then it might take a few years of experiences of sitting in an ongoing absence. But it's making peace actually with the nihilism and the meaninglessness of life that actually has it convert and flip in, so you can see the other side of the coin, which is actually life is completely meaningful. I was working with someone recently, and a lot of their life was about not feeling defeated. They wanted to win. They didn't want to feel defeat. Like, to feel defeated was for them an expression of deep absence. And so the question came up in me very intuitively, what if you took the feeling of defeat as the feeling of yourself? What if you were defeat? What if you were meaninglessness? What if you were the embodiment of death, of nihilism, of despair, of angst? Like, what if all that was you? And what if you had a big enough and generous enough of spirit to say, I am just the worst existential, infinite, black, gaping void that ever existed on this planet. And all of that is me. I am that. That is me. That is true. That is the way. Fuck. If you can really do that and own that much absence as the feeling of yourself, and it might take years to collect all this void and meaninglessness together so you can own all of it at the same time, well, guess what happens? Sooner or later, consciousness will be like, okay, the sun's coming out, all those meaninglessness and void and nihilistic feelings that you've just been identified as for the last period of time, the sun is out. I'm just going to shine a light on that, and it's going to turn into the opposite. And then it's like, wow, I am meaning. I am pure meaning. I am life. I am energy. I am vigor. I am enthusiasm. And the wider that you can accept the nihilism and the void into yourself as an identity, as a feeling that is you, then the wider the inherent meaning and pure love and pure consciousness is you as well. And so the void stops being scary when you identify yourself as it. Yeah, I feel meaningless, like life is meaningless at times as well. I just don't try to overcompensate for it. And then sooner or later, that feeling of meaning comes roaring back. So the journey of soul initiation, I really take after Bill Plotkin's work on this. I'll put a link to his book below. In fact, my legacy course is very inspired and built from some of Bill Plotkin's models. It's like as you go through the journey of discovering and awakening different parts of your soul, releasing different parts of your ego, including your dreams and your repressed emotions into your sense of self, eventually you're going to fall into an abyss. And can you actually embrace the abyss and love it and take it as yourself? And that's the courageous step. And yet I think it's when you hit the bottom of the well, you're quite surprised by what it is that you find down there. All right, so that's a lot of big picture stuff, right? What does this actually mean practically? I'm living in my, what do you call it? London, New York, Paris, like one of these cities that is eaten with modernism and the capitalist machine. How do I get out of this society where everyone around me is really caught up in their compensation and their status getting, and even their kind of, people are addicted to healing as a consumer product, you know, just wellness is my lifestyle, and the kind of, how do I get out of the low level shallows of that and then do something that's meaningful enough so I can follow and learn my sense of soul and plunge into the absence and plunge into the presence and become all of this so it transforms my experience of life. How to? Well, that is the journey of soul initiation, right? And some of the first things I would say are, if you have the inclination not to go out and party with friends and do all these old things that gave you the sugar rush, don't do them, let them go, renounce that which doesn't work. If it feels meaningless to be where you are, then again, become more intimate with the meaninglessness. But there needs to be a trail, right? How am I going to go through this? And often dreams is a great way of following the trail. Just start becoming conscious of your dreams, writing them down, recording them. What are the symbols? What are the places? Who might be the people, qualities, feelings associated with dreams? Read more, like real poetry, real literature, real adventure, real mystical literature. Read some of that, get a sense of the characters that went through the void before you and where they went. Often just one chapter in a book, when someone went to a certain place or they lived in a certain part of nature, that could guide you. And I know dozens of men around the world who are doing their own Walden, who are doing their own tantric quest in the Himalayas, who are following in the footsteps of something to come back to this place of soul. So let these dead or elder embodiments of soulful people, mystics, crazy ones, people that bring you energy, people that light you up, films that you admire. It's fragments of deep imagination is what you're looking for now. Collect some fragments of your deep imagination and go and follow it. Even if it sounds weird to leave your job and go and walk in the Sierra Nevada or the, Death Valley or the jungles of Brazil. If you feel real calling for those places, follow that calling and see what happens when you're there. Interestingly, when we go on the soul's path, we might not know what's going to be next, but you'll start to have the fortuitous encounters, the fortuitous books, resources, practices. Someone will invite you into a particular scenario and you'll start having those experiences that take you deeper. There is a way through it, and I think to go back to the notion of our times, the world, I think, is in a fourth turning, so it's like the ground that we walk on as a humanity is shifting under our feet right now. And philosophically, we have been in this meaning crisis for quite a long time, and that's dwindling down to its ashes, actually, and is taking a lot of people with it. And what's needed next is a renaissance, this phoenix from the flames, philosophically, but also in the way that we feel our disposition towards life. And so if you're on this journey, it's one of finding your soul and finding your meaning through your own self and in your own consciousness. That's a part of it. But to go on this journey is also to contribute, have your eyes on contributing to the rest of the world and the next generations. What is this next paradigm that we're moving into? Because there has to be a synthesis where we're not living in absence and nihilism and the narcissistic, consumptive, virtual social media self, fuck it, I'm just going to do what I want, design my life materialism as an answer to nihilism. We need to come back and to really embody soul and spirit and the sublime in a very, very coherent way, so that we then lead, we create things that are infused in meaning. We grow up a next generation where we can present to them the world is inherently meaningful. As well as so much of it being constructed, there is inherent meaning, there's sublime virtues, there's things worth fighting for, there's values worth dying for. Our art is no longer cynical and snarky and self-obsessed in bringing down each other, but we can create works, we can create businesses, we can create communities, we can create ourselves as leaders who are life-affirming and meaning-affirming for the next generation. Not in a consumptive, extractive way, but in a way of the spirit. And it's a big journey, but otherwise, what are you going to do? You're stuck between your existential terror and your nihilism and your compensatory mechanisms that no longer work. The only way is to go down and find your way all the way through. So again, I would welcome any questions on this video below in the comments. If your question is sincere, I'd love to see it, because obviously there's so much more talking we can do to tease out these are the questions of life that we're setting right now. And I do, well, all the work in the world that I do, the writing, videos like this, the coaching that I offer is a way to take people through this existential void and into something that is inherently meaningful and vital and life-affirming again. So if you're interested in talking to me more, I might also have some masterclasses coming up. I offer one-on-one sessions. I also write in my Substack, which is a more literary answer to all of this. Get involved. I am here. It is the fight of our lives. Thanks for watching.